Welcome to interview combat. Explosions, swords clashing, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. You're gonna have to imagine all that because I don't have graphics. But hey there, I'm GM Jim, and I'm here today with Anto over here. Anto from Icarus Games. Hey.
Hello, welcome.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Greetings, people of the internet. My name is Anto, and I run the Icarus Games YouTube channel. I've been doing it for, oh god, it feels like far too long now. I make a whole bunch of videos helping game masters have more fun at the table and showing off new tools and resources to just generally make your life as a game master easier. And it's all good fun.
I've seen on your channel you have a lot of Pathfinder content. Is that your preferred system?
I was doing a lot of Pathfinder stuff. I was running Pathfinder 2nd edition for about the last year, and we recently, my regular group and I, switched from Pathfinder 2nd edition back to 5e. We'd been running 5e before that, and then Pathfinder 1st edition before that with this same group. Been running with this same group now for getting on for 8 years, I think. Same group, same world, just hopping between systems every sort of three-ish years.
Yeah, my main group, we just switched from 5e to Daggerheart about 3 weeks ago, so we're exploring that.
How are you finding Daggerheart?
It's definitely now that we've done it for 4 sessions, maybe or 3. Starting to get over the hump of the chaos of not knowing the rules. Now that I'm starting to know the rules, finding it pretty easy to run. It's definitely less rules intensive than 5e. It's more of a rulings system, but so far I'm liking it a lot. It's a little more narrative forward. It's got more of a power by the apocalypse kind of move-based system. So yeah, ask me again in 6 months, but so far I'm liking it quite a bit.
Awesome.
Anyway, let's do the thing we're here to do today, and that is the interview combat. So what's going to happen if you've never seen the show before? It's an interview, but it's not your daddy's interview. What we're doing is Anto and I were going to roll contested D20 dice checks against each other. And if I win, Anto gets a hard question. And if Anto wins, he gets a soft question. But the first question I need to ask is, you get a modifier to your die rolls for how many years you've been YouTubing. So how many is that?
7 years now.
Crap, I'm not going to win any of these rolls. All right, so Anto's going to be rolling at a +7, and I will be rolling flat. All right, let's do our first contested roll. Let me see. Come on here, Nat 20. You only need to beat a 2. You beat my dice roll by 20. I would say you won that one. So here's your first soft question. TTRPGs can be intimidating for newcomers. What advice do you have for people who are interested in getting into tabletop gaming but aren't sure where to start?
So my biggest advice for folks that are interested is that chances are you probably know at least someone else that is interested, if not someone else that is already running one. Because a lot of people know folks that are actively playing. They might just not necessarily talk about it a whole bunch. So if you're interested, start just asking around your friends, see if there's anyone that you know that is currently playing. And if there is, just ask if they can either run a session for you or if you can sit in on one of those sessions. Since I've started YouTubing, I've had a bunch of folks that didn't know that I was playing for quite a while before I started YouTubing kind of come up and be like, oh, I didn't know that you did this thing. I've always been interested. Can we play? And it's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, with the internet nowadays, it is so much easier than it was when I was a kid, where if you wanted to play a tabletop role-playing game, you had to sniff out the other nerds at school.
Yeah.
And that was really your only option.
See them carrying the books around and you go, hey, I know that book.
You're one of them.
Yeah.
I want to be one of them too. All right, let's do our second roll here. Come on, Nat 20. Just barely
Just
beat
barely.
me. You beat me by 1. All right. Are there any particular TTRPG related topics or trends that you're excited to explore in the future?
Oh, yes. So one thing that I'm really excited to get more into later in this year is with the new update to D&D coming out, and how much of the kind of TTRPG media landscape that is going to be taken up. I'm very mindful of that. I'm going to be covering that a lot too, because I play D&D, and also, it's the biggest thing in the space, so it makes sense. But I also want to make sure that I am also looking at and covering third-party games, smaller games, indie games a lot as well, to try and make sure there is some space carved out for those, and use some of that extra kind of clicks and money and stuff that's coming in from the fact that all of this stuff is coming in from D&D to lift up and fund the fact that I can talk about the smaller games and stuff as well. So there's a whole heap of smaller TTRPGs that I'm super excited to get the chance to play and to start talking about in the coming months. I picked up a copy of Eat the Reich 2 weeks ago. One of the most gorgeous books I've ever seen in my life. It looks amazing, and I'm super excited to read that.
I've heard very good things about that one. Have you looked into DC-20 much?
I did. I looked at, was it either the 0.6 or 0.7 version of the alpha just before the Kickstarter launched. I read through that and made a video about it on my channel, and then have spoken to Coach a whole bunch about it in the lead up to the Kickstarter as well. I pitched it to my regular game group. They weren't particularly interested, but the next time Coach kind of pitches a YouTuber session, I might be like, put me in, Coach. So I can at least get a chance to try the system in actual play versus just reading it.
Yeah, I made a video about DC-20 a couple weeks ago, and I think it was within an hour of publishing my video, the creator, Alan, it's Alan, right?
Yeah.
He commented on my video, and I was like, wow, you're really paying attention.
Yeah.
He's probably had a Google alert set up, but it felt like, I really like that he's of the community and he's out there.
Yeah, he's
looking around for stuff.
He's got a real kind of focus on making sure that the people that are talking about his system are taken care of, because he started out like the rest of us as YouTubers, so he knows what it's like to be talking about a game where the company doesn't even know that you exist. So he's doing a lot of really good things to make sure that the creators that are talking about his game are treated well, which is really nice. It's a welcome change to dealing with a lot of the mega companies.
With the mega companies, it's often impossible to get their attention at all. But
about the only thing I haven't tried at this point is Semaphore to try and get them.
You tried carrier pigeons, sending them to Washington to try to get Watsy's attention. All right, we're cooking through these questions. Let's do number 3 here. Come on, Nat 20.
Oh, you are cursed by the dice gods.
I'm not winning today. How do you envision the future of your TTRPG? Well, this is kind of... No, we already kind of did that one. All right, let's skip that. Improv. How did you get into YouTubing?
So I got into YouTubing kind of by accident. So I started my business, Icarus, as a war games miniatures company back in 2015, and I had done a Kickstarter, funded a whole bunch of miniatures, and I had moved into an office to do fulfillment for the Kickstarter and do all the stuff related to that business. And I found that I had kind of fulfilled everything, and I had more free time than I expected in the office, and I needed something to do with the office. So I thought, I've got a camera that I use to take photos of all the miniatures and stuff. I could make some videos and try that out. And then slowly over time, it built and ended up becoming more successful than the miniature side of the business, and eventually just became my full-time job.
So if you have a background in miniature wargaming, maybe you can tell me this. I really like the idea of Warhammer and Warhammer
Mhm.
40K, but I don't have like a spare $10,000 laying around to invest in minis. Is there a way I could get into that game or a similar game without having to take out a second mortgage?
Absolutely. If you want Warhammer specifically, they do make small kind of start collecting boxes that, particularly in the last couple of years, they've put a big focus on trying to put like a small usable army and smaller sort of low level versions of the game together where you can just buy a box. I think the fantasy is like Spearhead, and I can't remember what they call the boxes, but it's like a little army, and they have versions of the rules where it's just you buy one of those boxes and pit it against another one of those boxes, and that's probably the cheapest way officially to get into it from like first party stores. But obviously, there are a bunch of retailers where you can get it at discounts. There's eBay, but then there's so many other miniatures games where you can get into them with way fewer models. Like Star Wars Legion is one of the ones that I'm really interested in because I really like Star Wars, and just having a whole bunch of clone troopers running around is really appealing to me, and that's a much lower price point. So there's a whole bunch of cheaper options than Warhammer out there, but Warhammer is a little bit easier to get into than it used to, even though it is still real expensive.
Yeah. There's my friendly local game store is just down the street, and sometimes I go there on Saturday is their like skirmish day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go there on Saturdays just to watch the nerds set up in the back where they're bringing in like buckets of sand, pouring them on the table to set up their desert campaigns, and it looks so freaking cool, but it also looks insanely time intensive and money intensive.
Yeah, it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it definitely can be.
Yeah, I already blow way too much money on tabletop role-playing games. All right, let's hit another question, and this time... Oh. I only needed 10 or higher, and I still... We tied, which the tie is going to go to the guest. All right.
No, you take the tie. Hit me with a hardball. Give me the spice.
You want a hard question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How do you address the issue of toxicity within the TTRPG community, and how can content creators contribute to a safer environment?
That is a great spice question. So when it comes to kind of my own corner of the internet, one thing I do is I am not shy about kind of blocking and deleting comments. And I think this is something that I see a lot of newer YouTubers kind of take a little bit too long to get into the habit to. You'll see folks come into their comments with some real bad faith arguments or some kind of negative comments that are a little bit over the line, and people will just let it ride for a little bit too long, and then those folks kind of get used to that. And then a creator might feel bad for like, oh, this person's been posting, and some of their comments have been perfectly fine, but some of them have absolutely been over the line. Whereas I'm just like, no, now I've gotten to the point where the first time someone posts anything that is, abusive to anyone or over that line, just banned, because there's just not enough time in your life to hold space for those people. And another aspect that YouTube does particularly well, it's one of the few things that I think that YouTube does better than a lot of other platforms, is with their flagged words system. So as YouTube creators, we can specify words that you want to automatically flag comments for. And I always encourage other TTRPG creators to, anytime you get a comment that has kind of a through line in it that's got a lot of toxicity and negativity, just start adding the common keywords from that to your flagged words, and they'll never make it to your public facing comments. And if you don't want to, you'll never have to see them, and you can create a space that is significantly less toxic for yourself and your community way easier.
Yeah, that's well put. I tend to block and delete unless I can think of a really good comeback.
Yeah. A lot of the time, like, people I know in my normal life will be like, how do you not just clap back at people? I'm like, sometimes it's really hard, but I try. I really try.
Sometimes I clap back, screenshot it, and then delete it.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave it for just long enough that they get the notification and see it, but by the time they click on it, it's gone.
Because, you're never going to win hearts and minds on the internet. You're never going to win the hearts and minds of terrible people on the internet. It just doesn't happen. And even if you come up with what you think is the perfect response that is certainly going to change their mind, it won't. It just doesn't.
Sometimes gentle parenting of people, when they're not being like super abusive, when they're just being that little bit towards the negative side, sometimes the gentle parenting of them can talk them down, which is quite funny, but you need the energy to do that, and I definitely don't always have the energy for that.
Yeah, energy and time to phrase your response in a way that doesn't sound like you are being condescending or argumentative. Yeah, that takes time and effort to format a response in that way. All right, let's go again. Only an 8. Oh, it was almost a nat 1 there.
Almost. Close. So close. Teetering.
So close. All right. What's your take on incorporating homebrew or house rule elements into your games, and how do you address them in your videos?
So I am fully in favor of homebrew. Most of what I do is homebrew focused, and it's part of the reason that I've ended up back in 5th edition as kind of my main system for my kind of ongoing group, is because one of the things that they said was, we want more of your kind of weird esoteric homebrew stuff, because that is one of the things that group gets their enjoyment from, is just my weird stuff. And I find 5e to be a system where I can just effortlessly homebrew in. So I highly enjoy homebrew and putting it wherever I can.
Is Pathfinder not as friendly to homebrew?
It's got a lot of codified mechanics for creating your own stuff. So from the point of view of the guidance it gives the GM, it's incredibly friendly to homebrew. It's just, it was from my perspective, and it was an entirely me problem. I was so concerned with knowing that it's a very balanced system, and I was so concerned about disrupting that balance that I didn't want to excessively homebrew, because I wasn't comfortable with being able to steer the balance back on course if I knocked it out of kilter by introducing a homebrew element. And that's nothing to do with the system, it's entirely on me. But it over time started to become a problem, because it was like I was boxing myself in, because I was like, I don't want to introduce too many new things, I don't want to tweak too many things, because I don't know what kind of knock-on effect that's going to have. So we ended up having this really like stale, linear, out of the box experience, and my players just missed weird, kooky stuff that I would come up with, and that was a big part of the reason we switched back.
Yeah, that's a good point. Since switching over to Daggerheart, my main group, I have not done a lot of the homebrew stuff that I normally do, because like you said, I don't know how it will affect the system balance. Like, I'm doing my best to run the game exactly how it says it's supposed to be run, and then if I find that it's still not balanced like they promised, then we'll implement homebrew as needed, because we all know balance is in the eye of the beholder a lot of the times.
Exactly.
And just because it says that this is how it's supposed to work in the book doesn't mean that that's how it's going to play out at the table. Yeah. So a lot of times balance is by the seat of our pants, and we figure it out as we go.
Yeah, and balance doesn't always necessarily mean fun, and sometimes like you can have a perfectly mechanically balanced experience and it can feel completely stale.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Well said. All right, let's do another one here. Come on, good roll. Hey, look at that.
That's
Look at
going to
that.
be me.
I won one without cheating.
Didn't have to fudge any
Without
dice.
taking the consolation. Let me... Okay, here's a fun one. Do you fudge dice rolls? No, really, you can tell me.
So yes, I do fudge dice rolls, but with the caveat of I will only ever fudge dice rolls in the favor of the players. So, and it's only in kind of certain specific circumstances. So, I'm trying to think of an example. Not so much fudging dice rolls, but sort of fudging numbers. When I think of fudging dice rolls, I think of fudging numbers in general. So things like one player might reduce a monster to 3 hit points left, and strictly speaking, that monster's still alive. It's easier to just be like, yes, that player can get the kill, versus passing it over to the next player who's going to way over damage it, and then you have the player that's done almost all the work not getting the satisfaction, and just little kind of massages in favor of the players in that sense. But I can't think of any time where I've ever fudged against the players, with exception of specifically in 5e, like legendary resistances, because those are a mechanical fudge that just says, I pass. The dice says I failed, but I just pass. But that's baked into the system, so somehow it's okay. It's not my favorite mechanic. And actually, I do, going back to our homebrew discussion from earlier, it's one of the things that I do homebrew because I feel kind of icky using legendary resistances, because it's never fun as a player to go and use an ability on a monster and the monster just say no. Whenever I use a legendary resistance, I will take away legendary actions from the monster on the next turn, so that the players can see that even though the monster has cheated, there is a cost to them cheating, and it kind of offsets some of that feel bad for the player, that they don't just use their ability and nothing happens. There is some tangible cost to the monster.
Yeah, good points. On the other side, sometimes legendary resistances can save an encounter.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I completely understand why they're there. I have had monsters shut down in the first turn, and then the whole combat is just the monster sitting there being completely annihilated by the whole party at once. So I get why they're there. It's just, it never feels good as a player to use your ability and have the DM go, it's just fine.
It happened to us. I was playing in a one-shot once, and we were level 11, I think. And we were going through a forest looking for something. It doesn't matter, but we got to the big bad, and we were all excited to take on this big bad. And the first person up in initiative did some kind of control spell that made the big bad leave. And I guess this big bad didn't have legendary resistances, but all the rest of his players were like, why did you do that? Now we don't get to have the big bad fight. And the DM was like, okay, I guess they leave, because that's what the dice say is supposed to happen now. So
yeah, it's one of those things, like, absolutely legendary resistances solve a problem, another kind of problem. It's just, I like to at least show the players that something has come from them using their ability. So taking away some legendary actions is just a minor thing that doesn't have a huge impact on the fight, but at least it's like, oh, you've taken away a little bit of their power for a turn.
That's a good solve. I think in Flee Mortals, the MCDM 5e book, I think some of their baddies have to end concentration to use legendary actions and legendary resistances. Like, it definitely, it has either like a hit point cost, or they have to stop concentrating on a spell in order to do that.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that exactly, but I remember there was some sort of cost associated there. All right, let's do another one. I think we got time for one or two more here.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. And come on, 18. What did I roll? Oh, there it is. Nope, that is not an 18.
You got the 8 in there, though.
Yeah, I had one digit correct. All right. Ask the homebrew question. What do you like to play when you're not doing TTRPGs? Are you into board games or video games?
I am. So I do miniature war games, like I said before, but I also play video games. I'm playing Starfield at the moment, which I've surprisingly gotten into. The first several hours, I was kind of really begrudgingly playing it because it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. And I was just trudging around space being like, this isn't what I wanted. But I've grown to accept it for what it is. But yeah, I play video games, and I also play board games. I've got a different group of friends who I get together with semi-regularly, and we have board game nights. And I've slowly started converting them to being TTRPG players. I've run a couple sessions of D&D for them, and now every time we play board games, a couple of them are like, when are we playing D&D next? I know. I'm like, I'll run it whenever you want, but I'm not going to force you in it. You know, you get the first one for free, but I want to make sure that you want more sessions.
What board games is your group into?
So we usually go for weirdly, a surprising amount of like geography and like trivia style ones. And then I'm trying to think of a lot of like the how to describe some of the things that a lot of like random Christmas stuff that you would get for someone that is not like a really board gamey person. So it's not like Catan or Ticket to Ride or like the nerdier board games. It's a lot more your Monopoly end of the spectrum without playing Monopoly. So a lot of like Cluedo and a lot of trivia games. It used to be Cards Against Humanity and that kind of stuff. We don't really play those anymore. And then playing, like I said, weirdly, a large amount of geography games. Like, there's this one that has a world map, and you ask geography-based questions, and about halfway through, every time we play it, everyone feels miserable. And I'm sat over there with a surprising number of, like, the tokens for the game, and I'm like, I don't know how I've done this.
Have you played Blood on the Clock Tower?
I have not, but I love the name. Tell me more.
It's sort of it's kind of like Mafia or Werewolf in that it's a social deduction party game, but it requires 6 to 10 people, and I don't know 6 to 10 people in person.
Yeah.
Too many of my friends are online for me to be able to get 6 to 10 people together, but it's sort of like that. It was a really big deal about 2 years ago, and I saw a Shut Up and Sit Down video on it recently, and I went to go buy it, and it's sold out.
I like a lot of those social deduction games. We've played a lot of those like Mafia Avalon, werewolfy style games, and they're always a lot of fun. It's like getting real paranoid about who's on the baddies team, and a lot of code names as well. Code names is one of our favorites to play.
Nice. Let's do one more. We got time for one more.
Let's do it.
And one more softball for you, Mr. Anto.
Give me a hardball. You've only given me the one hardball. Let's switch to the hardball. The spice.
Okay. Here comes the spice. Not that one. What's a mistake you've made behind the screen?
I make so many mistakes. Just last night, I made a mistake in that I had built a sort of semi-homebrew monster. So a couple of players were absent, so we were doing a kind of side questy type, almost like one shot. And I knew there was some monsters in the kind of region that the players were in that if I didn't use them now, the players probably wouldn't get a chance to encounter. So I knew I wanted to use one of these monsters. Doesn't have an official stat block. And I was busy with work stuff yesterday, also wasn't feeling particularly well. So I was like, it's fine. I'll just throw together the stat block. Pulled a kind of semi-related monster of a similar CR from one of the books and then added a few tweaks, but didn't do my normal level of kind of checks and balances on it and making sure that it had everything that it should have. And for me, it felt like the combat was just an utter slog. The players seemed to have fun, but I felt like I was pulling teeth the entire combat. I was like, this monster is not, it doesn't feel like it's the threatening creature that I've built it up to be in the narrative. It feels like they've spent, an hour or so doing investigations and seeing the results of this creature kind of rampaging through this city, and then they meet the creature and it's got like no cool abilities because I didn't spend the appropriate amount of time like building the monster out properly. And we finished the session and the players seemed happy and they went off, and I just sat there kind of staring into the middle distance like the memes, and I was like, I feel so dejected.
Yeah, I think the best piece of D&D or any kind of tabletop advice I ever heard was from Matt Mercer when he was on a talk show, and he said, if you want your monsters to be scarier, just have them do more damage.
Yeah.
And I was like, bam, that's great advice, because it fits into one sentence and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And some people might put that in the fudging category.
Yeah. But I mean, if that is in the fudging category, then that would be counted among the fudging that I have done, because as the combat went on, I was like, this thing is not hitting. The creature that I built it in is in the CR bracket that should be appropriate for the kind of encounter they're having, but it is not hitting where it should be.
Mm. Yeah, I'm a firm believer. When you step up in the first round of combat and it's the monster's turn and they hit the PC for half their hit points, and you see the player's jaws drop, that's when I'm like, yes.
Yeah, a couple weeks prior, I'd used a different monster that had legendary actions, and one of its legendary actions was kind of a charge and crushing attack that it could have kind of all of the damage of the monster was baked into this legendary action. And it did it to the wizard and just took the wizard from full health to like 3 hit points. And when it did that, the whole party lost their mind and like, what are we supposed to do about this? We cannot let this happen again. So their whole tactic became about avoiding this ability for the rest of the combat, even though it could only do it once per combat. They didn't know that. And it was ideal.
Nice. Well, I think we're about out of time. I like to keep these combats to around 30 minutes because, pugilists, we get tired. But this has been amazing. I want to thank you for coming here today and talking with me. Is there anything you want to plug here at the end, or any parting words?
Again, my name's Anto from Icarus Games. You can find me the channel is right there. If you're looking for a whole bunch of TTRPG related content, and then from there, if you like what I do, you'll find me across the internet. I'm everywhere. I'm in the bushes outside. I'm at your nan's house. You'll find me.
Spooky. All right. Well, thanks for playing, and we'll see you next time.